Good morning, everyone. What a beautiful morning. Great attendance. Welcome to the Prisa webinar, the Conversation in Perspective, looking at the clicks debacle. Just a few house rules. If you are on, you've joined us, please keep your mic mute at all times so that we don't get disturbing sound from the background. Welcome to this second open stakeholder engagement discussion on the clicks debacle. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the Prisa President, Dr. Delene Renier Bianeke, the President-elect, Kesaji Nayaga, and also with us this morning is the CEO of ACA, Mate Okaba. Welcome. And everyone else, we've got attendance from all over. SEDEC, welcome Botswana, Eswatini, Zimbabwe, Namibia. Of course, we also have a guest all the way from England, Kerry Shin. My name is Victor Debacle. I'm the current Chief Executive Officer of the Public Relations Institute of Southern Africa, Prisa. And Prisa is a professional body representing practitioners in public relations and communication management. The reason why we're having these discussions, you'd note that we are not just calling them webinars, but we have dubbed them the in conversation, because it is conversations that we need to have, and not just conversation, but conversation in perspective. As a public relations and communication profession, we do acknowledge that our role is that of managing through communication, managing what? Perceptions between all stakeholders. So currently there's a lot going on and there's perceptions flying all over. So it is the reason why we're having this conversation this morning. Please note that the views and opinions expressed today are not necessarily those of Prisa, but of a collective community of experts. To welcome us today and give us an official opening note is the Prisa President, Dr. Bianeke, who will give us a critical thought in as far as this matter is concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Dr. Bianeke to do the welcome. Over to you, the good doctor.
To the needs of our stakeholders, are we close enough in proximity to our stakeholders and their needs, not in order to just get them to buy our products and support our brands, but actually to understand. And that to me is essential for us going forward. And I would really, as we said yesterday in our initial discussion, really use this as a catalyst to find new ways of more than just new ways of doing. I believe the doing comes after the thinking. But we need to critically look as a creative industry. And I group everyone into this industry, from advertising, communication management, public relations, corporate affairs, whoever we are labeling ourselves as, or as a consultant, an agency, a corporate department, all of us are interconnected. And the effect of this has not just had an effect. The clicks debacle didn't have just an effect on advertising and on corporate and on retail. It actually has an effect on all of us because of the interconnectivity and the blurring of lines between the different functions. In the end, are we really pleased as a creative industry as to what we are giving our society and our clients? So just a few words from me as an introduction, for really a call to think critically and use our knowledge and our expertise to really find a different way of doing things in the future. Thank you, Victor, and thank you for everyone for joining.
Thank you very much, Madam President, for those insights. We also have today, though, she's
Prisa,
attending the president-elect of Prisa, and we also have Mate Okaba. Madam, I know I may be just throwing you into a deep end here, but we've been having this conversation around the MEC Charter, which we will unpack a little bit today, subsequent to the current things that are going on. So I would also like to hear, just to allow you to say a word or two in opening and an overview of this matter before we get to the real stuff.
Thank you, Victor, for introducing me. And hi, everybody. I represent the Association for Communication and Advertising. And I know this has been a hard week for all of us as communicators and as the human race. But firstly, I'm going to be here as a human and as a Black human and as a Black female with natural hair, all right? And I'm not going to, and luckily some of us have the opportunity to get in touch with people like Unilever CEOs, Click CEOs, and have a conversation and understand how this happened. And having that opportunity, unfortunately, I know the story behind the story, you know, because there's the story that's in the media and then there's the story behind that story. But I don't want to sit here and talk about the story behind that story because nobody knows that story. What people see is what is real for people. And that's what we need to react to, and that's what we need to fix. But yes, Victor's throwing me under the bus right now and is challenging me to say something. But for me, as a human being, firstly, I think as Black people, we want to be seen. As Black females, we want to be seen. As people who celebrate ourselves, look at Victor, how beautiful he looks with his natural hair. No perm, no nothing, no straightener. He looks wonderful. Why can that not be celebrated about us? And Renee with her hair, nobody ever picks at Renee's hair. Why does my hair have to be unprofessional and be put in a box of being unprofessional? And I'm speaking as a human being right now, not as the CEO of ACA. Why can I not be seen as a complete human from head to toe? And why must I be questioned for how I was born? This is me. Yes, I've got braids on right now, but underneath this is me. What else do you expect from me? And I want to show up as me. Don't question how I show up as a Black female and as a Black person. Don't question that. But we're finding that our society, and one thing we've got to remember, pre-94, standards were set by a select few people in this country. Professionalism standards, what is right, what is the way to look, the way you must, the way you need to look, the way you need to be. It wasn't set by us as people of color. We came in and we had to assimilate to the white way. And that's what we've had to do for the past 27 years, assimilate to the white way. Now, as Black folk and Black professionals, we need to start questioning that, to say, what standards are we setting that are equal for all of us? My English is very limited because it's not my first language, so I do apologize. So for me, I keep on questioning this, that I come into a profession, I'm told it's professional to look like this, to look like that, to look like that, but I was not part of that team that wrote those rules, but I must assimilate to rules that are white rules. you know? So we need to start questioning these things to say, even as professionals, we're coming into a landscape that we didn't create. It was created for us, we must assimilate.
Okay.
Sorry,
Thank,
that's it.
thank you so much. One might say, "Ooh, this is very hot, and it's getting hot in here." But these are the type of disruptive conversations that we need to have in order to come out of these things and emerge victorious. So we've asked ourselves a lot of questions during this week, and leading to these particular discussions that we're having as to what really happened with this debacle and what went wrong, okay, and who did what. And we also spoke about where the powers that be when this happened, and brought into the picture the whole lot of things about transformation, ethics, professional standards, and a lot more. So until we get into a situation or a platform like this, and we have a conversation, and we pick up what does each and every person feel, and we look at the issue of perceptions as well, we will be able to emerge victoriously, because we will now be going back to the book in terms of what is expected in terms of professional practice and professional conduct. Joining us today to unpack the background on how advertising industry work, how we end up being caught up in such type of situations, is going to take us in context as to what exactly happened with this, what is supposed to happen regarding putting together an ad of this nature. So we will look at what went wrong, and because this is a crisis now, we will then look at the crisis response, okay, over and above that, and then what can be done differently, because we are building here. These conversations are all about building the future. They're all about bringing about best practices. It's all about ensuring that we don't end up finding people being rubbed the wrong way. Joining us this morning, ladies and gentlemen, is Mel O'Brien, a futurist and a former president and fellow of the Public Relations Institute of Southern Africa, who led the sector's involvement in the drafting of the BEE back in the days. Okay, so during her tenure as the Prisa President, she served as Deputy President of the World Future Society, South Africa chapter, where she led the sector's inputs to South Africa's National Development Plan, and continues to serve as a guide. So with Prisa today, she has won numerous awards, such as the Prisa Vision Award of Leadership and the Prisa Prism Financial Mail Gold Award Management. And she also was involved in managing the Ellis Park soccer tragedy. So as a Prisa fellow, Mel is a lifelong honorary member who may raise matters directly with Prisa as well as the members. So to share with us today her insights, I would allow Mel O'Brien all the way from Kapstad. Hulle sê die Kap is duidelik, né Mel? Welcome, Mel. Over to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Morning, Chief. How are you?
very well, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much again for reconvening this platform today. Let me start again by saying thank you to Madam President Renee Beneke. It's lovely just to be interacting with you during this time. It's the first time that I'm meeting Cassidy and kind of putting a face to the profile. So just thank you very much for joining in with this conversation following from yesterday. Mate, our guest from the Advertising and Communications Authority, thank you for expressing those human values. Human values was something that we actually raised and spoke about yesterday, saying that, you know, where's that component in this world that's becoming so digitized? Where's the human aspect of it? And we as the public relations professionals, aren't we responsible for holding the space for that? So I also have on my head this morning, I have a towel, as I did yesterday. I'm also a creative activist. I'm a creative leader. I'm not in, you know, in that kind of, I've been in corporate, I've been in government, but let me just say, I'm not happy as a woman at the moment for numerous reasons. Topmost for me today are the very issues that you raised, Mathe, around how much of my identity is being framed right now by what's underneath this towel and how that comes across. So to the women out there, I really do empathize with you. Can I just ask Victor, whilst you switch across to this, I actually have to just open the door for my housekeeper. So if you'd give me a second, I'm a woman working from home. Just give me 2 minutes and I'm going to unlock. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. I just love Mel's energy. You won't say that she's been around for so long. Let me just see who else is here. Please forgive me if there's someone else that I have not acknowledged. It's not intentional. I know participants from Lesotho, Botswana, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and Eswatini. So we have a full house. SADC is truly represented today. Over to you, Madam Mel.
Okay, so I'm going to use a presentation versus talking. So once I began to see the unfolding or this crisis unfolding, the first thing that struck me obviously is there are two things that we look at. One being the seriousness of this crisis. The second thing being the probability of this happening again. So on the matter of the seriousness, what we saw happen is that the CEO of Clicks and Unilever underestimated the seriousness of our hair issues, number one. Number two, what they did is to try and overestimate their ability to try and solve a very systemic problem in a long-term way so that this doesn't happen again. And yes, resolution has come now between the EFF and Unilever and Clicks, but I think that's as far as they can take it as a political party. I think it's now for industry to explore and say, okay, so how do we use this trigger event to actually drive the long-term change? Because that for me is the opportunity space here. And I think in speaking with both people on, let's say, with Clicks, I've been in contact with them, with Magna Carta, who's one of our long-standing Prisa members who's been managing their crisis, and the CEO of Clicks, his stakeholder manager called me to say that they would like to meet with us about this and receive guidance going forward. Shobha Prasad, who is the head of corporate affairs at Unilever, an absolute professional, long-standing Prisa member, but she was gagged during this event and unable really to move. And we saw Unilever taking over a week, leaving Clicks to carry the can. And one just wonders, you know, how productive this really is when at the end of the day, there are stores being vandalized, there are all sorts of actions being taken that actually if leaders just did what leaders need to do, they could have addressed this matter and saved millions. But that being said, now we are where we are, Chief. So what I want to actually just frame here for you is to say, yes, it's a shame that racism is not a punishable offense. These things have now taken place, but obviously what can we do differently and how do we learn from this? You know, Prisa's had in its over 60-year history now, it's always sort of, it's quite an ambitious institute and has always seen itself as kind of redefining the space of public relations, both in the continent of Africa and kind of like playing above its weight with the Global Alliance internationally and the years of serving as the secretariat in the formation of that. So even though we're a very small South African player, make no doubt that we have offices in terms of our members and our FAPRA Association of Public Relations in Africa. And then globally, we were signatories during my term to the Global PR Ethics Protocol, which is how Bell Pottinger, we called that card on Bell Pottinger, and it is through the Global Alliance intervention as well that they were able to have teeth to call the red card to say, you have contravened the protocol, and this has absolutely broken the spirit of that. I think we have grounds here. In the case of this, Clicks is a local company. Unilever is a continental company. We're facing the fourth industrial revolution. Its spend on this continent is billions. If Unilever can't get it right, we must help them get it right. And certainly this case study must go on globally to be shared with our partners at the Global Public Relations Alliance, that they can know to put this in the textbooks so that future marketing and advertising people don't come and try this on our continent again.
I'm listening in the bedroom.
Let me just say, pardon? Hello? Are you there, Victor?
Yeah, I am. Carry on, man.
Okay. So I just want us to go a few slides down, please, Victor, because I don't have control of the slides that are being shown. One more down, please. Another one. One more down. Actually, go one back, please. Sorry, Chief. Go one back. Welcome, Namibia. Okay. Now, I also want to say that, so yes, we are guided by Prisa's vision, mission, and values. It's a world-class communication strategy leader. And I remember the scope in which we work. We are not the South African Institute of Public Relations. We are the Southern African. Our members from Namibia here, Zimbabwe, Botswana. So we encompass, and this is a very strategic role that we carry within the context of SADC, which in the context of the greater continent's ambitions, the African Union Vision 2063, and the Sustainable Development Goals, and what our role is as the communicators and the influencers that we have in that space. But we are also guided by the MAC, the Marketing, Communication and Advertising Charter, which I was a party to the drafting and signatory to the first draft. And that really came and said, this industry needs to work together, Mate, and we need to do that in a certain spirit. And that spirit is around, number one, the values being the inclusivity and diversity as per South Africa's motto, we also have the soul of the nation, expressing the brand of South Africa, coming through in the way we do this, the respect and human dignity that we bring to uphold the South African Constitution at all times, to make our work human and user-centric, in that we meet people and businesses' real unmet needs. We're not out here to do the superficial things of giving people what they don't want. And I think that's what Clicks and Unilever is seeing now, is that people saying, actually, your product is absolutely wrong for the kind of tone we want to be speaking to. And actually, there's a formulation of your product that you need to relook as well. And then this issue around responsible creativity, which was a matter I raised back in 2004, 2005, when we started, really looking at what was going on to transform the sector. It was actually not so much about, if you want to say, bums in seats, as in changing the faces. It was around the actual ethos and projection of the cultural aesthetics that we as African people uphold, and the values that we aspire as ideal, that we didn't see coming through in the projection, because those who hold the power ultimately then begin to shape the narrative, the story, the imaging, and everything moves and kind of goes downhill from there. We can have the next slide then, please, Chief, just so that you really get a sense of, the spirit that we're coming at this way. So what went wrong here? I'm going to just give you, and Mate, you please, feel free to share your views on it. I'm speaking as someone who has written, some of the module guides. I've served as a faculty and a board advisor to Vega. And so they are, one of the top advertising and marketing schools in the country. And my years there also just helping them to refine, and then obviously writing standards at Prisa. So in the first instance, what would have happened here in this environment is that Treseme's brand manager inside Unilever would have had some authorization to okay an advert to go on Clicks' website, and would have told either the internal agency or the internal team or the external agency to then issue what's called a client brief. That client brief would have said it's going to be put on here, it's got to involve this is our target market, this is our consumer profile, and this is the objectives that they want to achieve through it, and the spend. The agency would have received it, the strategy head at the agency would have looked at it and aligned it with the Tresemme brand protocols and where that brand wants to go specifically, and would have come up with some framework within which this can be done digitally on the Clicks website, or however they're going to approach it, and would have sent that back for approval to say, do we have your brief right? Would have gone back then to Tresemme. After that, once they said, yes, heads up, you've got it right, it will go back into the agency to the creative director, who's now got approval to go to the next stage of putting together a mock-up and a storyboard. Sits down with the copywriter, they come up with that copy.
So that SABC delivers top-line results. So in summary, this
Sorry,
is...
carry on. I'll get this. Okay.
Line here,
Sorry,
Victor.
can we have a mute there?
Okay. I've muted. The person has been muted. Carry on.
Okay, thank you. So what we then would have had, so we had some copy, and yesterday we were talking about, you know, the person who wrote that copy, my word were around what they're trying to explain. I often say my hair would be thirsty. It's thirsty for oils, for nourishment, for, you know, I would see it in that. My hair is not, you know, kind of in those derogatory terms that he kind of wrote about my hair. So at that point, when that copy came through, it would have been mocked up. It would have gone into the storyboard with sketches and illustrations to go to the Tresemme brand. And again, they would have signed off. They had to have signed off on the storyboard. It then goes back through. Now it moves, because remember, it's gone to the strategist. It's gone now to the creative director. From there, it's got to move into the production manager. The production manager has to work with traffic in order to make the bookings of the models, the photographers, all of that. And when those elements were brought together, there would also be lots of purchase orders and finance sign-offs that would have to correlate with the budget that Tresemme is kind of signed off in a contract then with the agency. Once that ad was then produced, it would then go back to Tresemme. Now, Tresemme at that point internally, the Tresemme brand manager would then escalate that ultimately to what I imagine would be the product category manager to say, look, you know, do I have a heads up on this, or would have the right to actually sign off on it and say to the agency, yes, in which case it then goes to the media department. And they've got to format this in whichever, so if it's got to be made into a print ad, it's got to be certain colors and it's got to be certain sizes. If it's going digitally, so all of once the ad is made, it can now be manipulated and put together into the treatment or what we say, the programming format. So once that is done, it now leaves that agency, and click, that thing can be sent off to Clicks, to Woolworths, to ShopRite, wherever that product is stocked. So for me, you know, this is about Clicks being the messenger. We received it via them. But I would understand that there's an entire set of processes and at least 5 very senior people who would have had sight of that. And so the fact that now Unilever refuses to release the names, yes, one can understand because the Labor Relations Act is there. People's rights have to be upheld. But we have a responsibility to investigate these agencies. How did this actually go wrong? And does Unilever have the capability within this environment, which is self-regulated, to actually autocorrect? Because my sense is that the industry is going to need help to be able to do these things. We can have the next slide then, please, Chief.
So, sorry, Mel, can I just interject a little bit? And I'm going to try and contribute to this conversation constructively.
Okay.
Now, my conversation with Unilever, it's Mate.
Sorry, who am I speaking with?
It's Mate.
Oh, yes. Okay, go for it, Mate.
Okay, you're speaking to Mate. In my conversation with Unilever, this would have been a different story. If you had black hair, frizzy and what, normal, straight and processed, colored, if you had those variations with regards to black hair, going down in a vertical. You had another vertical that had white hair, permed and straight, fizzy and whatever, a hair person, but you define all different types of white hair. We wouldn't be having this conversation. Now, what I've come to understand about what actually happened, it was hair and there was a product and solution for that hair. But we didn't see the entire e-commerce site. We just saw a portion of it.
Okay.
All right. And that still does not make it right, because when you look at it vertically, it looks like a comparison of that hair versus the white hair that is normal. Okay.
And so the end result was you saying there was a proper process, and that got somehow corrupted.
And for me, what I said to the principals that I spoke to, your PR was wrong. Your communication was wrong, because this could have all been avoided. All right?
Right.
Had you shown the entire e-commerce site and said, we've got frizzy, and what was recognized is you cannot just have white hair as normal hair. There needs to be black hair as normal hair. That's what there needs to be.
Yes.
Because that site, what it was doing, it was selling product. Now, Mate, who comes on board, and I'm looking at this, I take a picture, I don't give the entire look of the site. I give a portion of the site. That my hair in that vertical approach is never described as normal. Okay? And then it offends me as a customer. I posted, and that's where, and Clicks or Unilever should have addressed this in a different way. That's my belief. All right? But yes, it was still wrong for them to define white people's hair as normal hair.
Absolutely, Mate, because I think what we see then happening, if I can...
And let me tell you something else. Do you know that that imagery has been up since April 2019?
No.
It didn't happen just yesterday. That e-commerce site has been up since April 2019.
Okay. So it's run this far before.
And it blew apart.
Okay. Well, it's been picked up, and I think what we're seeing now is, as you're saying, about the break apart between the e-commerce sites and then using that for direct retail promotion, and actually breaking up what was really a holistically crafted sort of digital campaign. What I'm wondering, and I've said this to Renee and to Victor yesterday, was, do we have the right digital and e-commerce protocols in place to support the standards of these people working with this material? Because I think the textbooks need to be rewritten, and the coursework around this, we need to plug up the holes with some kind of addendums or something. So that's what I'm taking from what you're saying. If you can, come in here, please, Renee. Yes, Mate?
I'm just saying education needs to be different.
Right. Renee?
Well, thank you for that opportunity. I think we are all spot on, and I also want to acknowledge that we are critically looking at old processes, and yes, we can sit the whole day and analyze why things happened and why it shouldn't have happened. I think what is to me very important, and that is evident, that we need to change the way that we think about commerce, about the connectivity and the decisions that we take on all levels. And that, yes, I'm the first one to say that our education and our training of our creative people, again, I include everyone, needs to be redressed. We need to think differently from a society point of view, not from just an organizational point of view. And therefore, it is important that we don't get stuck now as a group of experts on, in my opinion, what may have gone wrong, what has gone wrong, how we would have done it differently if we were in their shoes. It happened. So what are we, a team, going to collectively decide based on research that Clarissa and a team of researchers have done? What can we do differently in the future to
Yes.
lessen these repetitive occurrences of bad communication.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Madam President, on that. May I ask, Victor, could you go to the next slide? And I'm going to move into talking to what was just raised now then. So let's have a look, and I think I can just very quickly, I took this image off from Facebook. I'm looking to find out who's the owner of it. If you do know, please give me a heads up. But this is taking place against a bigger backdrop. Corruption in South Africa, gender-based violence, COVID lockdown, the fourth industrial revolution adaptations, climate change, rising conflict. I mean, there's a high probability of the recurrence of more crisis events ahead. And so what we're saying here today is, how are we going to help prepare our Prisa members for what? And I'm speaking as a futurist. So I have, you know, it's sometimes I'm like the messenger of doom and gloom, and at other times I'm the one who identifies the breakthrough opportunity space. But in this case here, I need to give everyone a heads up to say, guys, we need to be doing more, because this is not the first pandemic. This is not the last that we've seen of pandemics. This is the first. COVID will go, more will come. So it may not come in rapid succession. We have to say, how do we build resilience through this so that we actually build on this experience and prepare for the next time? Just coming back then to Victor, we can go to the next one. Okay, so just again, talking to those client quality control processes. I mean, we've been working in terms of the MAC-BE charter with the advertising, and well, back in the day, there was still the Advertising Standards Authority, now MATE at the ACASA. And then there was GCIS, there was the PR side, and then there was the South African Research Foundation. We were the ones who came together and said, if we got to solve the standards and the ethics and the transformation, all of that of this industry, we're going to have to bring together these different, and I think these are now where the industry is now with the formation of the Marketing, Advertising and Communication Council, which is now, I understand, being driven by Minister Jackson Mthembu, who is the Minister of National Planning. So I'm just kind of bringing to you to say that we're not working on this on our own. We've got to work together as industry, everybody contributing and playing, you know, bringing the sectors in. Thank you so much, Victor. Right. So you know, they will tell you, me, I pull no punches. I am a martial arts teacher as well. So you'd find that my approach to things like this in a crisis management situation, because in this case here, I have to say, how do I absolutely ensure that this doesn't happen again? What is within Prisa's power? So for number one, it is a significant multinational global player. And certainly we can be calling for one, you know, scorecard issues that we could be looking at with both Clicks, Unilever, and its ad agency. And the charter gives us these clear 6 areas that we need to go and look at: the ownership, the management control, the skills development, the enterprise and supply development, its contribution to socioeconomics, and then responsible social marketing and communication. These are the ticks with which everyone gets their BE scorecard certificate in the industry. So if something's gone wrong, people are not framing here right, people are kind of breaking up and not being able to project the creativity the way in its integrity, then we must go and have a look and say, well, is this the right way then? Is this policy the way it's shaped? Maybe. Does it need to be relooked? So I'm just bringing this to the table. Thank you so much, Victor. You're bearing in mind, Unilever is also a Dutch-British company. It's been operating in South Africa since 1890, and it registered its trademark for Sunlight soap. Sunlight is a South African brand through and through, in the way of people sort of really, it's such a part of our lives. Now, in the past, Unilever has gotten away with ads like with Omo. It made our whites whiter, it made our brights brighter, and none of us and I'm talking as one who has been in the industry since 1995, there were many days we watched campaigns go through, and because of the power coalition inside agencies, we could do very little about it. I don't think that that we in the same boat today. I think transformation has come a far way, and I think now when we see cases like this come up, we must still then ask ourselves, like what is his name? Shepo mentioned yesterday. He said, you can have the most brilliant creative work sort of, you know, sitting there, but if the person who's responsible is the racist, they're not going to let that work go. So one has to now actually say we must write, and I would say ask of Unilever, because at the moment, this is a Dutch company, it's a British company, there's a huge trade standoff going on between Britain and the EU because of Brexit, and Unilever's right dead bang in the middle of this. So we can take this as a case study and say, you know what, how are you transforming? Because you must only now transform for Europe, you must transform for Africa, and we want to help you make that transformation so that you survive more resilient out of this in the future as a big player, or you're going to kind of have to adapt, but it's not going to work like this going forward. So let's go to the next slide then, please, Victor. Now, remember that TRESemmé is an international brand. It's owned by Unilever. So it can actually go, this brand, they can go and justify, because we fall under the Department of Communications. We're reporting to the Portfolio Committee on Communications because of the sectors that links to healthcare and trade and industry. But we must be curious, do citizens actually need this product? Is it good for us? Why must it be imported? Because local small hair care businesses may be better off with this product, these kinds of products not around. There are African hair care products that are better suited to meet the rising needs. And if they can't innovate these kinds of products and make it work for us, we can't anymore. I work in, you know, as a futurist in innovation and help some of like really admirable brands and companies trying to make their adaptations in Africa. But in this day and age, to still imagine that you can serve to a market what it doesn't want and need, but make sure that because the supply chains are set up to work that way and it works for you as a corporate, that you can now force feed us like on a drip, and we must just accept it. This is not, you know, consumer activism, the consumer is the prosumer. There's a whole host of rising trends that will tell Unilever they're way off the mark to try and imagine it can get away with this. So certainly with the ASA, the ACA, via the MAC Charter Council and GCIS, we can be calling for TRESemmé to be reviewed by a portfolio committee in Parliament. Thank you. For the next slide, thank you, Victor. Okay, so just very quickly, I put some things together, just speaking to what can we start to do different. I certainly, it was something I raised yesterday. It's within Prisa's mandate to constitute an ethics committee or some for a body within that can bring together the different components of this and say, how do we begin to rectify this to drive the change that we need to see in the industry? So in other words, in a typical crisis, we break into three streams. The one's going to go to, usually it's around what's gone wrong, and you put a team to manage that. In your second group, you put your business continuity team. They've got to keep the core business running. So that is what Victor does at the moment with Prisa, keeping it kind of going on its, you know, here we are today around what's gone wrong. And then the third group is around, so how are we going to start doing things different? And the reality is, as we've seen with COVID, is that government itself doesn't have this balance right between what's gone wrong, how do we keep the economy stable throughout this with the lockdown, and then going forward. And I think that's where we heard the president the other day on TV, then sort of a government trying to say, what are we going to be starting to do differently, and confidence really not being there to say that we've got it right. But I certainly think that whatever ethics team that we put together or committee of some sort has begun to look and say, well, given this, that we are on shaky ground, what's within our power to help our members to make shifts and adaptations to what's likely coming at them, and tighten up, especially on our ethics. I must raise here, I wonder, because in the days, you know, Rene and Victor and Mate and them, you know, in our days, if we even saw, like there was this thing about Pule Mabe, the spokesperson of the ANC, and Pule being involved in the PPE scandal, you know, it's those days we would have written letters as president of the institute to say we've been aware of this, and it's actually damaging to the reputation of South Africa, and we'd like to invite you to a meeting where we can explore, can we help to train you or to support you, or what needs to be done. The same thing, I sat and I watched GCIS on the Zondo Commission and thought to myself, how did that, or how does this sort of happen? And people kind of go, well, there's actually nobody who's taking, you know, this on to say that, no, you can't actually get away with these kinds of things, because in the old days, we were so scared of stepping out of line, we'd be called into the ethics committee in a flash. And that was never a pleasant experience, but I did serve on them. So the second thing is around training. And my slide here is a little bit small, but I'm going to try and see here. So training is needed. It's around ethical leadership. It's about brand reputation. It's about design thinking. It's about Ubuntu aesthetics. How many people know that South Africa is the home globally of the very first creative act that took place? If you go to Blombos Caves, you've got a whole team of Wits University professors. Aside from being the cradle of humankind, where women conceived the first human being into the world, in the Blombos Caves, you see the very first weapons, necklaces, paints, chemistry sets, shells being beaded, and I'm just saying symbolic communication on the rock. The very first, they're 100,000 years old. I went there, I took a trip, I was absolutely blown away. Now let me ask you this and say, how in this day and age do you not honor that legacy, this heritage that the kids of this country have, to know with pride that they actually were the first design thinkers in this world, the first people that in that moment where before the human mind was just survival, instinctive, animalistic, the moment when someone conceived, I can take the stone, I can shave it down, I can make it fit, and I can augment my hand. I can then make my hand longer, and I can make a weapon out of that. I don't know if you can see as I'm trying to display it. The human mind did a significant shift between just being survival, are you with me, fight or flight, and being able to calculate with intention, how am I going to solve this problem? And what they unearthed now is that this wasn't done in Europe. This was done 100,000 years ago in Africa. And I think that this, again, is the kinds of things that calls for us to be re-looking what is the story that we're telling. I was on a webinar the other day with I'm for the Arts, and they're busy saying, well, you know, for the creativity education, we must be bringing the European standards. And I'm like, hell no. Why do we need the European standards brought here? We are the ones that have the heritage and history to offer this world. And we should be the ones writing the narrative and story, because Africa's got to be a leader in the 21st century. As you tell, I'm very passionate about these things. But Ubuntu aesthetics, people must get it, and especially in the creative industry. The whole field of creative intelligence is growing. African innovation has got its own, you know, the way that we approach what is beautiful, what is something that's worthy of upgrading to make it different, what are the needs that it actually meets. We tick a lot of different boxes to European people. And I think agencies need to be educated around this. Obviously, the online, digital, and this whole thing around cultural diversity, this has been going on. I mean, I'm in the industry about 30 years now. You know, we really just have to get this right, guys. So that's on ethics, then it's on training, then this issue around standards. For how long has Adele and Margie and every CEO before you, Victor, been sitting down and spending how much hours with the services CETA to get all these standards and protocols correct? Where is the services CETA today in this conversation? And again, as I said, the number 4 that I have to put on the table is about advocacy and really living through to the spirit of Prisa's vision, asking ourselves here, what is this PR landscape that we're in and how are we going to redefine the space? So for me, one of the things that, and you know, is clearly immediately is this shift around corporate social investment versus corporate social innovation. Right now, what we need is what's called market creating innovation. It's basically taking your corporate social investment spend, going to give it to small groups of your communities, of your consumers where you were doing CSI in, and letting them make products that's going to feed back into your supply chain. So we don't need handouts right now. We need a shift in the way that we as PR people can contribute to the economic recovery of this country. And we've got to say, guys, this field of corporate social investment is now kind of colliding with this field of design thinking, and what's emerging out of that is a new field called corporate social innovation. And are we going to stand by and kind of be asleep at the switch, or are we actually going to turn on the lights and say, okay guys, you know what, there's a new reality out here that we need to deal with. So that was the, you know, the one part. And I think certainly our members out there are really on shaky ground to explore what exactly is the future of work in the sector going forward. I think, you know, talking to the conversation yesterday that we had as well, Clarissa gave us about the research and the academic work that's been done. I want to propose that we use this opportunity to combine insight now with foresight, and we become wiser because of this crisis. We are looking at trends in agency clients, in budgets, shifting roles, the consumer needs, expectations, values, changes in our trade outlooks. There's a whole process around a new set of scenarios for South Africa 2050, 2060. And there's a Delphi research survey underway for that I'm a part of. And we need to probe, where is this industry likely to be, and what is the opportunity space for our members? I'm now onto the last slide, just to say thank you for the opportunity. For me, I try not to miss the moment when I need to speak up. And obviously, this is something that is very close to me. It's something that during my term as Prisa President, I said there will be 3 things to my legacy. Well, one was around the ethics, and I signed the PR protocol, the PR Global Ethics Protocol with the Global PR Alliance. The second was transformation, and I signed the draft of the BEE Charter, even though back then, Marty, I'll tell you that I received hate mail. I walked away from meetings and I would have agency bosses warning me not to be getting to my car in a car park alone at night because something may happen to me. People were absolutely unsupportive back then. I think we're in a different time now, and I would like to see that the industry stands together more strongly around the transformation issues. And the last thing that I really brought to the table was the matter of, or the issue of sustainable development. And we're seeing that is pretty much, you know, in line and in keeping with where a lot of business is at now. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And over to you, Chief.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This has been quite a mouthful. As when we started, I made it clear that we are having a conversation. But this is not just a conversation, but it's a conversation in perspective. Now, in the midst of everything else, there was the Bruce Lee, the martial arts, Mel O'Brien, who came across very strong, hard and fast, which brought this discussion into a little bit of disruptive engagements, which is what we need, by the way. Sometimes we need to rattle the fingers, the feathers, because whoever got themselves into this mess, they're certainly going to be wrapped around the knuckles. Now, just a few things that I would like to raise quickly. A lot came up in terms of protocols, training, and review of terrain material. We've got 3 academics in here. Clarissa, if I were to throw you in first, with your research that you've done, the need for us to really zoom in and look into these areas of protocols, training, your findings of the research. Can you just give us a little bit of that?
Great, thank you, Victor, and thanks for the opportunity. So there's a dual issue that I want to address here. Yesterday, I explained to you that we've done the research on the agency-client relationships, and it is a 6-year consecutive study, which I'm going to continue this year. And unfortunately, my legendary supervisor and research partner had passed away, and I invited Renee to, you know, let's create a partnership and continue with it. So we have to share this to a very large extent with Prisa and work with Prisa on this to look at where the trends were 5 years ago and where we're going. But that being said, what Mate and Mil and yourself and Renee said today is once again just music to my ears, because something else which lies very close to my heart is the issue of moral accountability and a moral framework for South African practitioners. And Mil hit literally the issue on the head when she said we're working in a South African context and internationalization of standards is a no-go. So what we've done, and I've got some research which I'll gladly share with you, 2 published papers, and we've presented this in England, Spain, and New York over the last 3 years, is the first paper dealt with the issue of, are we in dark art or art, the model accountability of South African public relations practitioners. So we went and spoke to practitioners and said, you know, where are we? What are the issues? Do we follow a protocol and whatever that we sign, and we don't take moral accountability for ourselves? And we've got the results on that, and we want to continue with that study, because I think specifically with where we are now, things like this is crucial. And like Emil said, entities like Unilever, which these practitioners are working for, needs to transform. But what is more important is the fact that they've shown a lack of respect for the communal values and the societal context that they're working in within South Africa. And I think that is important, because the key word here is Ubuntu. We're one of the most uniquest contexts in the country, or in the world. And that's why Bell Pottinger had the response that it had, is because of that moral laxity. And I think our study with the paper, which I'll share with you, shows that we analyzed the second paper, sorry, I should just, where this is coming from, is a paper on Bell Pottinger and the dark art of PR, ethics of individuality versus ethics of communality. So what we looked at is, what do we do with all of this and the fact that we're working in a different context? And like Merle said, brand storytelling is crucial. You can't give me a 1/10 of the story somewhere down the line and expect me to create a whole story from it, the whole narrative. But in essence, what I need to say is that when we look at Ubuntu as a moral framework in our context, it's not just accountability to self, but accountability to others and others. Secondly, the dialogue, ethics in the face of others. Where's my dialogue? And most importantly, human flourishing. I absolutely love that word, because if we do everything that we do from a moral accountability or moral baseline, is it about human flourishing? You know, in this case of Unilever, is it about interaction or transaction? How much of it, as Merle said, was about the e-commerce and the whole value chain rather than interaction with clients and making sure they've got the whole storyline? Do we have a shared voice, or is the voice only owned by Theresa May and Unilever? Do we have a bottom-up approach with regards to community orientation in terms of how we engage with these brands? And then obviously, with that being said, I will share this, but I'm very happy to state that I come from a perspective where ethical failures, like the one that we have just seen, is not just philosophical problems, but it really is also causing economical problems. And it holds very much significant political consequences for social and the economic contexts that we live in. And that's why we need to pay very, very pertinent, or let me say, a lot of attention to these issues. You know, Ubuntu in itself, and that's why when people say, some people, when you say Ubuntu, you can see the look on their face as if you say, isn't that a bit old? And I think I get so excited when I hear it, because what it means to me is virtue, it means tolerance, it means harmony, it means compassion, it means inclusivity, it means embracing social justice, not serving only self-serving needs, but also valuing the greater good in ethical decision-making. So that being said, Victor, I want to say that there's two approaches. I want to share the research that we've done on agency relationships the last 6 years, and I would gladly say, Prisa, please, we need you, we want to partner. And I take that forward. But then also on the ethical side, I'll share these papers, and I'm more than happy to get involved in any level on continuing this research on moral framework, and Ubuntu is a moral framework for South African communication practitioners. And when I say practitioners, I'm not just talking individuals, I am talking brands.
Wow, thank you so much. Before you come in, Madam President, and bring in the another academic from Cape Town, the subject of Ubuntu and what is happening right now is so much closely related. You know, I define Ubuntu as the concept that did not create life but perfected it, and that's what it is, right? Madam President, your take. Then I'll also like to open up the platform for questions, comments. I know some people are rushing for meetings. We do have time. If I can extend it maybe until 11:30, but if we have time, we can be here till 12 o'clock. I don't have a problem at all. We have actually scheduled the morning, but we really have to cut it because we need to mind time and do and run other projects. Okay. A lot came up as well about telling the story. You know, I read something very interesting from the Craddock group on the Facebook, and it read as follows, I quote, "Telling a story is very important in digital marketing because people buy from people," close quote. So profound, so profound. Madam President, Dr. Bieneke.
Thank you, Victor, and thanks for everyone's very valuable contribution. I think for many years, Clarissa and myself and those other academics like Deirdre are trying our best to set up a new set of guidelines. I'm worried to call them all standards or laws or codes of conduct, because I do believe it needs to come from the heart. Our way of thinking starts with how we are connecting, and that's the part of Ubuntu. How are we connecting to each other and asking ourselves the critical question, are we really achieving objectives as a human being, first of all? Mate, and I appreciate your connection with that. But constantly asking ourselves and using that in our own circle of influence, may it be our clients, our own supply line, in our case, our students, and our industry partners. How do I live the values that I propose to be having? And no external set of rules are going to guide that or are going to force me to do that. It needs to be an internal mindset, which is in itself problematic and challenging to constantly refocus. So as much as I hear the standards, and I'm the first one to say we need a benchmark, we need something to aspire to, we need research, and we need to integrate the research that we are doing, and that has been part of my or aim in my term, is to bring the research and the practice closer together, so that we learn from each other, that we have, that we, for once and for all, attempt, and it will take a long time, to really break down the silos and work together in improving things. And whatever the things are that we need to improve. So again, I think, as I said earlier on, there's lots of work and there's lots of opportunities for us to work together. I think what I am looking for now is a little bit less talk and some more action on all levels, CETA level. And Victor and I have had many recent meetings, very positive with the services CETA on academic levels, and us as a group of academics can be the catalysts, professional bodies working together, and then clients and communities all working together. So that to me is where I would like us to actually action some key future endeavors that we need to work with. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you so much, Madam President. I think we can buy just about 30 minutes just to finish at 11:30 instead of 11. We have quite a number of other guests in here. This year, over and above all other partnerships that Prisa is forging, we have also forged a partnership with the Africa Brand Summit, which is convened by the Prisa Past President, Mr. Soli Muweng. He is a reputation management specialist. Now, all these things as they happen, we know definitely the image is tainted. The brand is not something that people would like to associate themselves with. The reputation is gone down the drain. Now, looking at all these three, definitely something needs to be done in bringing back the reputation of the organization. Mr. Soli Muweng, I know I'm also throwing you under the bus here. If you could comment, and I know as well that these topics will definitely raise their head as we tackle the Africa Brand Summit next month in Cape Town. Mr. Muweng? Okay. All right. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you, sir.
Can hear me. Oh, sorry about that. All right. Thank you very much. I wasn't expecting this, but I appreciate it. I've just said something there. Do you need to see me? I'm unshaven. Let me just put it on.
Let's see your lockdown look.
I have a towel on my head, sorry.
No, this is the lockdown look, Mr. Muweng. Don't worry. Yay!
Hi guys, thank you very much, Victor. I appreciate this. Yeah, I'm really excited to be working with in collaboration with Prisa on the Africa Brand Summit, which I've just shared a link there if you want to have a look at it at your own time in the chat box. It's going to happen. So this is a project that was established in 2016, but it was meant to be launched in 2017. But remember, 2017 was when the ANC had that conference where Ramaphosa became president, and all the noise and negativity in the country required that we move it to 2018. That's when we launched it in 2018 in October, and it was and then we took it to Joburg last year. Now we're also working with the National Convention Bureau, so they want it to be, and it makes sense. It was always the aim anyway for it to be a regional event, not just one that's going to be hosted in South Africa. So the cities of Kigali, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, and Nairobi, Kenya have already indicated interest to host the summit. So in the future, it will go around African countries on the basis of cities hosting or bidding to host it. And it's an exciting event. It's all about reputation, really. I'm very fascinated by a destination reputation, because destination reputation can be a stumbling block to economic development, socio-economic development. I mean, why do people like to go to Hawaii or to Paris or to Toronto and not to Harare or to Bulawayo? We should ask ourselves, why are some destinations more attractive, while others not attractive? And Africa as a whole tends to have reputational issues, being things that are negative about Africa get to be said. And the aim of the summit is really, this is not a PR exercise, it's to unpack those negative perceptions, what informs them, and how do we over time change things that must be changed in order to eliminate the negative perceptions or to reduce them. And how do we enhance the positive ones? And skills, making Africans proud to be African, not because they can dance better than others, but they can introduce new things into the world. Innovation is important. I mean, new technologies, new skills. We want people to come to Africa not just to see animals, but to also say, you know what, I want to go and study at the University of Harare or Kenya or Uganda, whatever, because we give the best education. Okay, we are very proud, or the first ones to say, oh, I studied at Harvard, I studied at La Sorbonne and all that with our nose in the air. But we don't say the same things about our own local universities because we're not paying attention to the fact that the quality that we churn out will build our reputation. So Africa is overall a net importer of food crops. It should be around the other way. We should be self-sustaining. We have all the land. We do. What do we lack? What kind of skills do we need? What kind of technologies do we need? What kind of policies do we need? What kind of investments do we need to change this thing around? You know, skilling Africans to do awesome things in Africa, and those who are in the diaspora, whether they're African or not, to want to be part of this Africa. It takes leadership. All brands are led. You know, if you take any awesome brand, especially including a country brand, and give it to a leader who's going to mess it up, where the values are not clear, the vision is not clear, you end up in places where you don't want to be. So, I mean, Africa, of course, is a large continent with many countries, lots of diversity there. But we have the AU, we have at national level, we have leadership. To what extent are they visionary? Are there visionary leaders in Africa that look 20 years ahead and say, these are the things that we want to see happening in Africa, and these are the plans we're putting in place? We don't see that. We see, you know, summits after summit after summit of our leaders getting together, coming up with lofty dreams, but we don't see the investments going in the right places. We don't see the plans. The corruption is taking away the resources that could be helping build an awesome Africa. So how do we get people to really, and how do we get Africans to be a bit more activist? African citizens must demand the best. You know, we mustn't allow African leaders to walk roughshod over us, because that's what's happening all the time. They make decisions on our behalf. Some of them, they are really more decisions about them, not about us as the custodians of Africa, as it were. So the summit is really the aim of it is to arouse the African spirit of pride. You know, we want to be able to walk around the world with our nose in the air, not because, as I said, not because we can dance or because animals, but because we've got something to offer. When you go into those multinational negotiations, we have to stand shoulder to shoulder with other people. So these are not things that are going to be, you know, achieved overnight, but we have to start the journey somewhere. And hopefully in 50 years terms, people will look back and say, you know what, it was awesome. This is the culmination of this journey.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so that's what the summit is about. I hope that more of you are going to be part of the summit. Look at the link and go to www.africabrandsummit.co for more information.
No, thank you so much.
Thank
you so much, President Mueng. That's where we're going to regain our spirits and bring back the Africa in us. Take into consideration the importance of a brand and branding. Now, we have another, while we're in Cape Town, let us stay in Cape Town before we go out to Swaziland. Swaziland, get ready. Zimbabwe, get ready. Dedre, may we also hear your take on these conversation? And now I'm throwing you under the bus as well. So be ready, okay? Dedre? Okay, well, Dedre is getting herself. Okay, anyone else who would like to have a take or in this conversation that we're having? Swaziland? I see we've got the newly formed Swaziland Prisa chapter. The attendance is in big numbers. Anybody from Swaziland? Any takers? Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, in the absence of any comments from anybody, questions or recommendation, all what has come out from this conversation is that something needs to be done. And it shouldn't just be talk shows, but it should also be followed with actions. And I think the notes that are coming out of here, the discussions that are taking place here, we are going to table them and put action. make them action items, put timelines onto them, start acting on them. The next major event that will give us more insights on Clarissa's report in particular on the research findings is Prisa's research colloquium, which we will arrange we will host on the 21st of October. Now, this coincides with the World Ethics Day, a Global Ethics Day. So when we talk ethics, this is also this topic is also has something to do with ethics as well. So we will be sending out invites and communique in this regard. We will be hosting a hybrid event with attendance, and the rest will be online. Okay. So the people that made some contribution, Asmate, any parting shot from you?
Hi, Victor.
Yes, ma'am.
I think let's be better humans. I think that's my critical parting shot, because when we're better humans, we know the right thing to do. We don't even have to question that, you know? When I care about you, Victor, I'm not going to do anything that impacts you negatively. I'm going to think, what is good for Victor? You know, yes, I know we all have different standards, but there are certain human things that are just, it is the way it is. Be a good human. And when we are good humans, we become good professionals. We take care of the people we work with. We take care of our communities. Let's be good humans, guys. That's all I'm asking.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's Ubuntu there. A life lesson. Be better human. Thank you so much. Okay, Madam President. Okay, anyone else before I pass the baton over to Madam President to wrap up? Okay, just one thing before we go. At the Africa Brand Summit taking place the 7th and the 8th of October in Cape Town, Prisa will also be running a masterclass on destination branding. When we say we're branding the destination, we're branding South Africa, what goes into it, into that? We will be looking at the broader aspect of the element of public relations. And when we say we manage communication through perceptions, what perceptions are we dealing with? How are we going about dealing with those perceptions? How do we make sure that we don't even become perceived either bad or right? We stay on par and we do the right things at the right time for the country. Okay. Madam President, I'll hand over to you. Maybe I'll hand over to Mel to her parting shot, and then Madam President will close the meeting. She has another commitment in the next 10 minutes time, right? Madam O'Brien, 2 minutes, then Madam President will wrap up for us.
Thank you so much, Victor. I concur with you, Mate, being better humans. You know, I grew up on the Cape Flats. And so many kids I work with these young kids. It's called the South African Youth Cadets. And Saturday mornings, they do this drilling, left, right. I teach them martial arts. I can tell you how many of them really struggle to understand what is right and what is wrong. When you have parents who are drug addicts, father beating your mother, you know, your brother who's the drug addict, he pays the bond, so he's allowed to do what he likes and you don't really. So, you know, there's a part of being good human beings that really asks for those who are, you know, are able to kind of stand up and to hold the space for that goodness to emerge. Not everyone has that, to have that goodness kind of shown to them, if I can put it to you that way. If you must know some of the horrific things that I have actually seen. So I want to say that Prisa has a role. It exists for a purpose. It has a meaning. It has a value. It has a respect. Are you with me in that way? And I don't want it to shrink back from playing that role. I don't want us to have, you know, it's all this analysis, diagnosis, you know, all these things that are there. When do we actually move into execution of saying this is actually the standard? This is what we are. God will raise the standard. And I believe that it's institutions like this. The president spoke the other day about the state of our country and calling on institutions. How do we strengthen institutional capacity? How do we bring this competence? Do you know how many institutions have leaders who are keeping people beneath their ceiling of competence? Are you with me? And that is what's also contributing to corruption and the implosion. So I don't want Prisa to be put into that box. I'd like to come away from this session today with a sense of pride that I've given of my time to something worthwhile, meaningful, and valuable to South Africa and to the world. And I ask us to not shrink back from taking forward some action out of here that can lead to meaningful change. Thank you so much, Victor, and to you, Renee, Madam President.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Jwale Gangwana Mopostola. Now, if you understand Sisutu, like a child who's been well brought up, after having done everything else, I need to pass everything, the baton back to my senior to wrap up and say whether I did a good job or a bad job. But anyway, don't worry about that. I will see month's end if I get paid or not. Madam President, over to you. May I ask you just to wrap up and then close the meeting for us? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victor, and everyone. I think, to me, it is just so heartwarming to see the synergy, as I said yesterday, the energy, the creativity, the willingness to find new solutions. And I think that way of addressing so many serious things that we know that are wrong around us can only be positive. It can only take us somewhere new. And if there's nothing out of this morning that I forget or that I would remember, it is really to listen to the connected spirit, Mo's energy, Mo's concepts, her reflecting on all the amazing things that she's done and bringing it back to the current context. Mate's speaking as to the need for us to see each other. Not like we say in Ubuntu, I see you, I acknowledge you, I recognize you, not only as my fellow human, but as somebody that I value, that I respect. And out of that stance, we can take things further. We have amazing qualities in our country. And I do believe, and I always share with the students, the amazing things that we are doing on so many levels. That's not often told. We have now spent a whole week of major news and negative news and people bashing each other, some very rightful reasons, asking critical questions. But what do we do about the amazing messages that are out there, the attempts that we have to bring people together as an industry? So can we take today as a start of this new reality? We all talk about the new norm, but this new reality that we have, as Marty said, we have common, regular, everyday values that we need to build on. And that's what I think we as Prisa can really assist with in the industry, to be that combination or combining force so that we can continue with other activities in the future. So I really sincerely thank all and every one of you. Thank you, Victor, for arranging all of this. And I'm sure you didn't throw anybody under the bus. I think they were all just very happy to contribute to this very valuable platform, and I'm sure we can organize some salary for you at the end of the month. For the end of the month.
Oh, I like that.
Thank
You're all
you so
witnesses. Madam President, please acknowledge the presence of Kerry, all the way from London, who will be the speaker at our research colloquium. Kerry, thank you for your attendance. We really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you, Kerry. Looking forward to listening to you on the 21st of October.
To all the practitioners, there we go. Best lessons. You're going back to your offices, to your day-to-day job. You will be faced with such challenges. This is the time for you to take notes, and you know where to go. Talk to us. We are Prisa, the Public Relations Institute of Southern Africa. We're here to serve. if you need any information, contact us at info@prisa.co.za. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon and a great weekend. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you, Mate. Hey, how's Clacky? Hi, Sony. Bye.
Hello, Debacle, and bye-bye.
Hey, Yanda, the student, the researcher, Papa. Here's the research material.
Akir, no. Bona, I have armed. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank
Babe
you,
Dlamini.
Shapcha.
Thank you. Right. Miss Praise. Good to see you. Good to have you.
Thank you so much, Victor. It was great being here. Well, we are learning a lot from here. We are learning and looking forward to more. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated. The next one will be hosted by Eswatini. We're ready.